At 11:02 p.m., the last visitor signs out at the front desk. The security door hums shut behind her. The lobby goes quiet, but the building does not stop. It never stops. In fact, for a hospital, the night is not a pause. It is the moment the system reveals what it is made of. Most people experience a hospital in fragments: a waiting room, an examination table, a hallway glimpsed through a curtain. They see the edges of the system. What they don't see is the infrastructure that runs beneath it, the coordination that makes every monitor, every medication, every surgical suite available at any hour. This is not a story about emergencies. It is a story about consistency, about the hundreds of decisions made between midnight and 6 in the morning that no patient ever witnesses, and that only work because of people who have chosen to do their most important work while the rest of the world sleeps. The night shift in a hospital begins with a handoff. It is one of the most structured conversations in medicine. Outgoing nurses brief incoming nurses on every patient, medication schedules, behavioral patterns, IV lines, pending labs. Nothing is assumed. Everything is said out loud. The system demands it. In a large hospital, a single night shift can involve more than 400 patients. Each one tracked, each one monitored. The charge nurse on each floor manages roughly 30 to 40 of them. She knows who needs repositioning every 2 hours. She knows which call light tends to come on at 2 a.m. She has learned the rhythms of the ward. The physical space of a hospital at night is different from its daytime version. The cafeteria is dark. The administrative offices are locked. The gift shop window is unlit. But the clinical floors are fully operational. Lights calibrated for nighttime, dimmer in corridors, full brightness in procedure rooms. The architecture of the building shifts its function by the hour. Somewhere in the basement, the hospital's central pharmacy begins its second run of the day. Pharmacists pull medication orders that have come in since 8 p.m. Some are routine, a blood pressure medication, a sleep aid, a morning antibiotic to be preloaded. Others are urgent: a patient in the ICU whose condition has changed, a new order typed in by the attending. That medication moves through the hospital via a system most patients never know exists: a network of pneumatic tubes. Pressurized cylinders traveling at roughly 20 to 5 feet per second carry medications, blood samples, and lab specimens between floors and departments. In some hospitals, this underground network covers more than a mile of tubing. The pharmacist loads the canister. The system takes it from there. On the fourth floor, the ICU is running at 70% capacity. That means 12 patients, 12 beds, 12 stations, each one a separate system of alarms, drips, and monitoring feeds. The ICU night team consists of 2 nurses, a resident, and an attending physician available by pager. They will not all be in the same room at the same time, but they are all reachable within 60 seconds. The monitoring system in an ICU is not passive. Every 15 minutes, data from each patient's bedside is automatically logged: heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, respiratory rate, temperature. If any value crosses a threshold, an alarm fires. The nurse knows the difference between an artifact alarm, a wire shifted by a patient's movement, and a true physiological alert. That distinction comes from years of practice. At 1:17 a.m., a patient in room 412 changes. His blood pressure drops 4 points in 6 minutes. The alarm is subtle, not a code, not a crisis, but a warning. The nurse checks his IV line, repositions the cuff, takes a manual reading, then she pages the resident. The process takes 4 minutes. Everything about it is practiced and calm. The resident arrives within 90 seconds. He reviews the chart on the tablet, adjusts the IV drip rate, orders a new electrolyte panel. He speaks in short, specific sentences. The nurse listens and confirms. The interaction lasts 6 minutes. Then both return to their stations. The patient stabilizes by 1:44 a.m. In another part of the building, the lab never closed. The hospital laboratory operates on a 24-hour cycle. Samples that arrive at 2 a.m. are processed at 2 a.m. Complete blood count takes approximately 45 minutes from receipt to result. A blood culture can take 24 hours. The night lab technician moves between centrifuges, analyzers, and specimen racks with the quiet efficiency of someone who has done this 10,000 times. Results from the lab travel back to the floors electronically. The ordering physician receives an alert on their device. If a result is critical, a dangerously high potassium level, a severely low hemoglobin, the lab calls directly. There is a protocol for that call, a read-back procedure. The lab tech states the value, the nurse reads it back. The system requires verbal confirmation to close the loop. The emergency department does not have a quiet version of itself at night. It runs on a different logic. There is no appointment system, no predictable volume. At 3 a.m., a hospital ED may be at the same capacity as it was at 3 p.m., or it may be far busier. The triage nurse at the front of the department decides in under 3 minutes how urgent each arrival is. The triage system runs on 5 levels. Level 1, immediate threat to life. Level 2, high risk, may deteriorate rapidly. Level 3, urgent but stable. Level 4, less urgent. Level 5, non-urgent. Most nights, the majority of arrivals fall between levels 3 and 4. But the triage nurse cannot know that ahead of time. She evaluates each person as if they might be a 1. Behind the ED, through a set of double doors, is the trauma bay. It is always ready. The trauma bay does not wait for a call. Supplies are staged every shift, defibrillator checked, crash cart restocked, airway kit sealed and verified. This preparation is invisible. It happens before anything is needed. That is the only reason it works. In the operating suites 1 floor up, the schedule is different at night, but not empty. Emergency surgeries do not wait for morning. A ruptured appendix, a traumatic injury, a complication from a procedure done that afternoon. The OR team on call can be scrubbed and ready in under 20 minutes. That 20-minute window is not an estimate. It is a standard, and it is tested regularly. At 2:38 a.m., the surgical charge nurse receives a call. A patient is coming up from the ED. Abdominal injury. Attending surgeon notified. Anesthesiologist paged. She moves to the pre-op staging area. She pulls the instrument set for a general procedure. She verifies the count. She checks the expiration dates on the sterile packaging. The system does not skip steps. Not at 2:38 a.m., not at any hour. The surgery lasts 2 hours and 11 minutes. At 5:04 a.m., the patient is moved to recovery. The OR team strips the room. Used instruments go to central sterile. Surfaces are wiped down with a precise sequence of solutions. The floor is mopped. By 5:40 a.m., the room is clean, restocked, and ready. The next case can begin at 7 a.m. as scheduled. Nothing from the night interrupts the morning. Central sterile processing is one of the least visible departments in any hospital. It sits in the lower level, away from patient areas. Its job is to receive used surgical instruments, decontaminate them, wash them, inspect them, package them, and sterilize them before they return to the OR. The cycle for a standard instrument set takes 4 to 6 hours. The department runs all night to keep the morning cases supplied. The sterilization machines use pressurized steam at temperatures above 270 degrees Fahrenheit. The process is called autoclaving. Each load runs for a set duration. A biological indicator, a small vial containing heat-resistant spores, travels with every cycle. After sterilization, the vial is incubated. If the spores are dead, the process worked. If they survive, the load is rejected. The biology confirms what the machine claims. 3 floors above, on the medical floors, the night nurses move in a rhythm. Medication rounds at midnight. Vital sign checks at 2 a.m., documentation updated continuously. The rhythm is predictable, but it is never mechanical. A patient who was asleep at midnight may be awake and agitated at 1:15 a.m., may show a subtle change by 3:30 a.m. The nurse adjusts. Every medication administration in a hospital is a verified act. The nurse scans the patient's wristband, then scans the medication barcode. The system cross-references the order, the patient, the dose, and the time. If something doesn't match, wrong patient, wrong dose, wrong timing, the scanner alerts. The system is designed to catch errors before they reach the patient. Most nights, it catches dozens of near misses that never become events. On the maternity floor, the night has its own character. Labor does not follow a schedule. At any given moment in the night, A labor and delivery nurse may be managing 3 active patients, each in a different stage. One just arriving. One just arriving. One in active labor. One pushing. The monitoring system tracks both mother and fetus simultaneously. Decisions are made in real time, on limited information, in the middle of the night. The neonatal ICU runs quieter than any other unit in the hospital. Not because less is happening, because less noise is allowed. Newborns in critical condition are acutely sensitive to stimulation. The lights are kept lower. The voices are kept softer. Monitors are tuned to produce quieter alarms. The environment is engineered to reduce stress on the smallest patients. The care is meticulous in ways that are rarely documented. Down 2 floors, the hospital's environmental services team is in the middle of a deep clean cycle. Every night, patient rooms that have been vacated are turned over with full terminal cleaning protocols. Surfaces wiped with EPA-registered disinfectants, contact time measured. Bed frame, bed rail, call button, light switch, bathroom fixtures. The order matters. Clean to dirty, high to low, consistently. The room must be ready before the next patient arrives. The hospital's linen system runs through the night on a separate track. Soiled linens from patient rooms are bagged and placed in laundry chutes or carts. They travel to a lower level where they are sorted, weighed, and loaded into industrial washers. Clean linens come back pressed, folded, and loaded onto carts. By 5:30 a.m., fresh linen carts are staged on every floor. The system is timed to meet the morning bed-making rush. The food service operation also has a night presence, not the cafeteria, that is dark, but the kitchen. By 4:30 a.m., the morning dietary team begins preparing patient breakfast trays. Each tray is built to a specific patient's dietary order. No salt for the cardiac patient, thickened liquids for the patient with swallowing difficulties. The kitchen team cross-checks every tray against a manifest before it leaves the kitchen. The hospital's supply chain operates beneath all of this. Every consumable used in the building, gloves, bandages, IV bags, suture kits, syringes, is tracked by a materials management system. When stock on a floor drops below a threshold, the system generates a replenishment order. During the night, a materials technician makes rounds with a cart, restocking floor supply rooms from a central storeroom. This process is largely invisible to clinical staff. It simply appears as needed. In the hospital's data center, a locked, climate-controlled room in the basement, servers run the electronic health records system continuously. Every note typed by a physician, every order entered by a nurse, every lab result processed, every image captured by radiology, all of it flows through this room. The system handles millions of transactions per hour. It cannot go down. A backup generator ensures it doesn't. The backup generator system is one of the most critical in the building. If city power fails, the generator must activate within 10 seconds. Between failure and restoration, battery-backed, uninterruptible power supplies keep the critical systems online. Ventilators, cardiac monitors, infusion pumps, operating room lights. None of them can wait for a manual restart. The transition is engineered to be invisible to the patient. The lights may flicker, but they do not go out. The facility engineering team runs the hospital's building systems through the night: HVAC, plumbing, electrical systems, medical gas systems, oxygen, nitrogen, vacuum, all piped through the walls to every patient care area. A pressure drop in the oxygen line at 3 a.m. is not a minor issue. It is a life-critical event. The engineers monitor pressure, temperature, and flow continuously. The building is as much a machine as anything inside it. Medical gas systems are inspected daily, but monitored continuously. Every outlet, every room, every bed is connected to a zone valve box. If a line is breached or a valve is accidentally opened, the zone can be isolated within seconds. The hospital's alarm panel for medical gases sits in the engineering office. A soft alarm sounds. An engineer responds. The system is designed so that no single failure is catastrophic. On the third floor, the radiology department is quiet but not idle. Imaging studies ordered overnight are read by radiologists on teleradiology contracts. Physicians in different time zones, working at their own midnight or 2 a.m., reviewing scans from hospitals they may never visit. The CT taken at 11:30 p.m. has a preliminary read within 40 minutes. The report drops into the ordering physician's queue before morning rounds. The result was read in another city. The patient never knew. The radiology technologist who took that scan did not go home at 5 p.m. She works nights. She has worked nights for 11 years. She chose it, she says, because the work is more focused, fewer interruptions. Each study gets her full attention. At night, the scanner does not stop between patients. It simply waits less. Security in a hospital at night is a different kind of work than security elsewhere. The building is open. It must be. People arrive in crisis. They arrive without appointments. They arrive with family. The security team manages access without impeding care. They monitor the perimeter, the parking structure, the patient floors, the emergency department simultaneously. They respond to behavioral events, a patient who is confused, a visitor who is distressed, before they become clinical issues. The hospital chaplain on call does not sleep through the night either. There are moments in a hospital that fall outside the clinical. A patient who cannot sleep and has no one to talk to, a family receiving a difficult prognosis at midnight, a patient in the final hours of life alone. The chaplain is called for these moments. They are not medical interventions. They are human ones. At 4 a.m., the hospital reaches what staff call the quiet hour. It is not silence. It is a different density of activity. The urgent calls have settled. The early morning lab draws haven't started yet. There is a 30-minute window, sometimes less, where the pace slows just enough for a nurse to drink a cup of coffee and sit for 3 minutes before the next round begins. This is not inefficiency. This is the system breathing. At 4:45 a.m., the morning lab draw begins. Phlebotomists move through the medical floors in a coordinated sequence. Each patient on the morning draw list receives a blood draw timed to arrive in the lab by 5:30 a.m., so that results are available before physician rounds begin at 7 a.m. The window is tight. The phlebotomist moves quickly, efficiently, and as quietly as possible. Most patients return to sleep within minutes. By 5 a.m., the building begins to shift, not from sleep to waking. The hospital never fully slept. But the operational weight begins to redistribute. The night team is in its final hour. The early morning staff is arriving in the parking structure, scanning badges, changing into scrubs. The overnight documentation is being reviewed. The morning handoff begins at 6:45 a.m. It is the same structured conversation that opened the night. The outgoing night nurse briefs the incoming day nurse. Every patient, every change, every unresolved order, anything that happened during the night that will affect the day. There is a formal sequence. It cannot be rushed, and it cannot be done at a distance. Eye contact matters. The tone of voice matters. Communication at shift change is where the night and day connect. By 7 a.m., the hospital has completed its invisible transition. The cafeteria has reopened. The administrative offices are unlocking. The morning surgery slate is underway. Physicians are rounding. The gift shop light turns on. From the outside, it looks like the beginning of a work day. From the inside, it is the seamless continuation of one. What makes the night shift different is not the darkness. It is the ratio. Fewer staff, the same number of patients. Each decision carries more weight because there are fewer people to consult. A night nurse on a 40-bed floor may be responsible for 8 patients. She cannot quickly grab a colleague from the next office. She works from protocols, from training, from memory, and from judgment. The judgment is the part that cannot be automated. Maria has worked night shift in the ICU for 9 years. She chose nights after her first year because she preferred the pace. Slower in some ways, faster in others. She says the hardest part is not the acuity. The hardest part is the translation. Explaining to a family who arrives at 3 a.m., scared, underslept, disoriented, what happened to their person during the day, catching them up while also moving forward. James is a night shift respiratory therapist. He covers the entire hospital, every floor, every unit. He responds to any patient on mechanical ventilation. At 4 a.m., he may have checked on 26 patients. He carries a pager that he checks every 6 minutes by habit, not because the interval is required, because that is the rhythm his body has learned after 12 years of nights. Not every night is a crisis. Most nights in most hospitals are defined by repetition. The same checks, the same rounds, the same documentation cycles. This is not tedium. It is discipline. The consistency of the routine is what makes the deviation visible. A nurse who does the same thing the same way every night is the one most likely to notice when something is different. Routine is not the absence of vigilance. It is its foundation. There are nights, though, when the system is tested, when a patient deteriorates rapidly, when an emergency case arrives and the first available surgeon is 20 minutes out, when the overnight pharmacist discovers a dispensing error from the previous shift. These are not failures of the system. They are the moments the system was designed for. The response is what matters, and the response is practiced. The rapid response team is a hospital within a hospital. It activates when a nurse recognizes a deteriorating patient who has not yet reached crisis. The goal is to intervene before intubation, before the ICU transfer, before the code. The team responds within minutes. They bring expertise to the bedside. They are the bridge between the ward and the intensive care unit. And they exist because of a simple principle. Act early enough, and the worst outcome can often be avoided. This is also the role of a system called the early warning score. Patient vitals are continuously fed into an algorithm. The algorithm weights each variable: heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, temperature, oxygen saturation. When the combined score crosses a threshold, the system alerts the nurse. Not for every deviation, for the pattern. The combination of variables that historically precede deterioration. The data does not make decisions, but it prompts the human to look. The documentation system in a hospital runs parallel to care. Every action is recorded. Every observation entered. A nurse who gives medication documents the time, the dose, the patient response and risks. A physician who orders a test documents the clinical rationale. This is not paperwork for its own sake. It is the memory of the system, the record that allows the morning team to understand what the night team did and why. There is also a system for when things go wrong at scale. The hospital's mass casualty incident protocol sits in a binder on every charge nurse's desk. It is also in every department head's digital inbox. It activates when the hospital is asked to receive a number of patients it was not prepared for. A mass trauma event, a chemical exposure, a building collapse. The protocol stages the building itself. Waiting rooms become overflow care areas. Hallways become staging zones. The hospital expands. Most hospitals run the mass casualty drill annually. The night team participates in a version scaled to night shift staffing. They walk through the notification chain, who calls whom, in what order, using which system. The hospital's disaster coordinator reviews the results, what worked, what didn't. The protocol gets updated. The system improves itself by simulating its own failure. The concept of redundancy appears in nearly every hospital system. Backup power, backup oxygen supply, backup communication channels. If the electronic health record goes down, there is a downtime procedure. Paper forms are pre-printed and stored. Every clinical decision can be made without the system. Not as well, not as efficiently, but it can be made. The hospital is engineered to function in its own failure modes. There are departments in the hospital that most patients will never visit. Infection prevention, quality management, risk management. These teams do not treat patients. They study the system itself. They track infection rates, fall rates, medication error rates. They identify patterns. They report to leadership. They recommend changes. The clinical care that patients receive is shaped, in part, by analysts who have never been at their bedside. The documentation accumulated on a single patient during a single night in hospital can run to dozens of pages of digital record. Vital signs. Notes, medication logs, lab results, imaging reads, each one authored by a different person, each one timestamped, each one traceable. If something goes wrong, the record shows the sequence. If something goes right, as it usually does, the record shows that too. It simply becomes the archive of an ordinary night. At shift change, there is a moment of overlap that is rarely acknowledged. The incoming nurse and the outgoing nurse walk the floor together, each patient introduced, each concern mentioned. This is not required by protocol in many hospitals, but experienced nurses do it anyway. The walk communicates things that words alone don't capture. A patient who is restless, a room that feels different. The texture of a ward has information in it that paperwork cannot hold. There is a term used in hospital culture. The night team owns the night. It means that decisions made between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. are the night team's to make. They do not defer to a morning physician who isn't there. They use the tools available. They call for help when needed. They document clearly. And they deliver the morning team a building in the same condition, or better, than how they received it. The hospital building has absorbed hundreds of nights like this, some quieter, some harder. Some in which everything went exactly right. Some in which the team was tested to its limits and held. The building doesn't record this. The walls don't carry memory, but the people do. The nurses who have done 10,000 midnight medication rounds, the technicians who have run 10,000 autoclave cycles, they carry the history of the place in their hands. The patients who slept through the night do not know most of what this document has described. They woke to morning rounds. They received breakfast on a tray that was prepared while they slept. Their medication was already administered. Their lab results were already in the chart. The floor they are lying on was cleaned during the night. The system handed them seamlessly from one team to another while they were unconscious of the transition. This is the nature of a well-functioning system. It is invisible to those it serves. The night shift in a hospital is designed to disappear by morning. No headlines, no recognition. The lights in the lobby come on, the cafeteria reopens. The visitor at 8 a.m. will never know that someone sat with their family member every 2 hours through the night, checking in, adjusting, documenting, deciding. There is a specific kind of fatigue that comes from night shift work. It is not the fatigue of having done too much. It is the fatigue of having been present when the rest of the world was absent, of keeping watch. It is cumulative in ways that sleep does not fully repair. Night shift workers in healthcare show long-term physiological effects, circadian disruption, sleep fragmentation, elevated stress markers. The system requires this of them, and they accept it. Many night shift workers describe the same paradox. They chose nights. They stay on nights. But the body doesn't stop signaling that this is not natural. The drive home as the sun comes up, the blinds drawn against the light, the world moving toward its day while you move toward sleep. They have learned to live inside this inversion. Some find it simply theirs. The hospital is one of the few institutions in modern life that does not have a closing time. No last call, no final boarding, no end of service. Its systems are permanently. The infrastructure, electrical, mechanical, digital, human, is configured to run without interruption. When something threatens that continuity, the system responds. Not because it was told to, because it was built that way. There are 6,120 hospitals in the United States. Each one runs its own night, a different crew, different protocols, different patient census, but the same architecture of care, the same sequence of handoffs, checks, rounds, and decisions. The same quiet machinery of a building that never stops. What happens in one hospital tonight is happening in thousands of hospitals simultaneously. The night shift is not a single event. It is a continuous system. The people who work these nights don't usually talk about what they do as heroic. They talk about it as work, good work, Necessary work, hard work, but work. The word heroic suggests something extraordinary. What they do is extraordinary in its ordinariness, in its consistency, in the fact that it happens every night reliably in buildings all across the country. The morning administrator who unlocks the administrative suite at 7:45 a.m. does not know what happened on the fourth floor at 1:17 a.m. She will read a summary report, she will see the incident log, but she will not have felt the 6-minute response time, the phone call to the resident, the manual blood pressure cuff, the IV adjustment at 1:44. The system recorded it, but the record is not the same as the thing. The hospital at night holds a specific quality of trust. Patients trust that someone is watching, that the alarm will be heard, that the medication will arrive on time, that the building around them will not fail. This trust is not abstract. It is grounded in systems, protocols, human skill, and institutional redundancy. The trust is warranted, but it is also earned every single night by the people who show up for it. There are tens of thousands of hospitals around the world running this same system tonight. Different languages, different equipment, different staffing ratios, but the same essential logic. Someone must watch. Someone must respond. Someone must maintain the machine while the patients sleep inside it. This is not a modern invention. Night watch in hospitals predates the modern hospital itself. Florence Nightingale carried a lamp. The system has grown larger. The commitment has not changed. What the hospital night shift reveals, if you look at it carefully, is a model for how complex systems sustain themselves, not through heroism, not through luck, through design, through practice, through the relentless repetition of tasks that are easy to overlook precisely because they work. When the system is invisible, it is functioning. Invisibility is not absence, it is proof. By the time you watch this, another night shift is running somewhere. Another pharmacist is loading a canister. Another nurse is reviewing a lab result. Another respiratory therapist is walking the corridor. Another facility engineer is checking the oxygen line. The night does not pause for reflection. It simply continues, as it has every night before this one, as it will every night after. The night shift is a form of institutional commitment. It is the hospital's promise made tangible. We will be here. Not just the building, the people, the ones who chose to do the most demanding version of this work in the hours when doing it is hardest. The infrastructure around them makes it possible. The training inside them makes it effective. And their presence, quiet, consistent, unannounced, makes it real. There is nothing spectacular about a hospital at 3 a.m. It is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. It is operational. An alarm sounds. A hand reaches out. A note is entered. A tube is cleared. These acts accumulate. They become a night. The night becomes part of a record. The record becomes the history of how a building kept its promise to the people inside it. Dawn arrives at approximately 6:24 a.m. The exterior of the building begins to change. The sodium vapor lamps in the parking structure dim slightly as the light quality outside improves. The lobby windows start to glow with something other than fluorescent. The shift is almost done. The system is already calibrating for the day. And somewhere in a corridor that is slowly brightening, the night team finishes its last round. The night shift ends. The day shift begins. The hospital continues. And the hundreds of systems that ran through the dark, unseen, unannounced, unremarkable in their consistency, reset, restock, recalibrate, ready to do it again tonight, as they were last night, as they will be tomorrow. The building does not rest. It only changes hands. Under this video, there's a subscribe button. It's a small action, but it helps reveal the systems most people never notice. If you're curious about how everyday life actually functions, consider subscribing. And tell us, where are you watching from? Have you ever worked behind the scenes of a system like this?